Good evening. We are live. My name is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined tonight by a very special guest. Is it Chair Lee Yates? Am I pronouncing that right, Miss Yates?
It's Charlie.
Cherry.
Charlie.
Cherry Lee. Okay. So, Miss Cherry Lee, where are you calling us from?
From Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay, you know what? We're having some technical difficulties. Um, okay.
Can oh, can you hear me better?
Yes, much
Okay.
better.
Okay.
So you're from, did you say Utah?
Yes.
Okay, what's going on in Utah with CPS?
Well, I was on the show before. Do you want me to explain the whole situation again?
Sure, or you can just give us an update. Either way.
Okay, I'm just gonna explain it again. I was in an abusive relationship, and when I was in the abusive relationship, when I chose to leave that abusive relationship, I had went to the Road Home Family Shelter, which they also work with victims of domestic abuse. It is a homeless shelter, but I went there because when I did my research, I thought that I would get more services. Well, I have custody of my two grandchildren because my daughter is, I placed my daughter in voluntary custody, in DCFS custody, because my grandmother had abused her, and my daughter is currently missing. And we believe that DCFS sold my daughter. And why? Why? Because she was a minor when this happened, and she was trafficked 3 times in custody, and all 2 of those times she conceived. And so I fought for the grandbabies, and I got custody of the grandbabies. So this is why I have custody, and this is all related. But while I was at the shelter, I noticed that the shelter has something to do with single moms, where they're targeting single moms, and the shelter made a lot of false accusations against me, where it was so bad that I had one CPS worker come, and she investigated my case, and she was telling the shelter that they were harassing me and they needed to stop. Well, then the courts decided that they weren't satisfied with her reports, and they didn't feel she was being accurate with what she was reporting. And so they sent another caseworker. And that caseworker was horrible. She submitted false information to the court, information that she knew was false, because we did an interview with the director of the shelter, and we recorded that shelter meeting, and so she knew it was false, but she submitted it to the court anyway. The shelter had my kids wrongfully removed in January 28th, but the police left me with my daughter because they thought it was crap. But they told me that they were going to fight for me, but they have to follow protocol. So they removed my children from me January 28th. I got them back April 21st, but I was adjudicated from all charges. So they took my kids for like 2.5 months, where I ended up being adjudicated from all of the charges. I have my grandchildren back with me, but because the traffickers had my daughter on drugs while she was pregnant, and so we believe that the little boy has alcohol fetal syndrome, and also I don't know what they call the other drugs that are used when a woman uses drugs while they're pregnant. And so for that reason, they're keeping my case open. And now we're waiting on doctors because they're like, we need to get assessments. But I don't understand why they're doing that, because if I'm adjudicated from all charges and they gave me a trial home placement, why do I have a case open?
But you have the grandchildren in your custody, correct?
Right, they're right next to me. They're actually sitting next to me.
Okay. We don't want to put them on camera because
Right.
Right.
Right. They told me, but I'm just saying.
Okay. How old are they?
5 and 4.
Okay. Very good. They're saying there quietly. I'm
Yes,
impressed.
they're being good.
I'm impressed. Miss G, any questions for our guest? Miss Yates, how are you at lip reading?
I'm good, thank you.
So I didn't hear the whole story. I just got here late. So all I know is she's the grandmother in this case. So when did you get your grandkids back?
Yes, I did get my grandkids
When did you get them? Recently?
April 21st.
And so are they staying with you permanently? Is the case
Yes.
closed?
No, that's what I was just explaining. They're having an open case because just to make it short, my daughter was trafficked. And she was trafficked while she was in custody, and she's missing now. We don't know if she's alive or she's dead. And the traffickers had my daughter on drugs, and so she conceived. When she conceived, she was on drugs, and so
Mhm.
we think that the little boy has. I don't know. I just forgot. Sorry.
You said fetal alcohol syndrome.
Yes, and for that reason, they're going to keep my case open because they want an assessment done on him. But I don't understand if I was adjudicated of all the charges and everything that this family shelter said was thrown out of court because I was able to prove that they lied. And so, yeah, and so that's where I'm at. And I don't know. This whole situation isn't good.
Mhm. So so basically they're monitoring how you are with the children, correct?
No, they said that they're keeping the case open because they want an assessment done on my grandson.
Well, that's the same thing. Well, they're still going to monitor you as how your behavior is around the children. They're still going to keep an eye on you, though.
Oh, well, that was, I don't know. They didn't tell me that. They told me that they're doing it to get the services I need for him. Because they told me I was adjudicated of all charges and that the case is not about me. But now they're just making sure I have the service that I need for the help for him.
How old is the child?
He's 4.
Okay, do you have a lawyer?
I do have a lawyer, but it's a state appointed lawyer, but he's a very good lawyer. I want to do a civil rights case against the state because of what's happened, not only with my daughter missing
Mhm.
but also with my grandchildren.
And you said he's a court-appointed attorney?
Correct.
You want the case closed though, correct? Miss
Yeah.
Correct.
Yates?
Correct.
Are they giving you any services that are beneficial to you or the children?
Not as yet because they're waiting to see if what is wrong, if what my grandson's needs are, because he has some behavioral issues, and they're waiting to see. Sorry, my granddaughter's getting up, and I'm trying to keep her out of the camera. We're waiting to see what the assessment says, and then they're gonna go from there to see what his needs are and how I could best meet his needs. Because when I first got him, because I had the little girl since she was born, but the little boy, I got him um, when he was 5 months old. And so the doctors, I've taken him to the pediatrician, and I've tried to have him diagnosed because we didn't know if he had autism or what the problem was. And they told me that he's too young to diagnose him. And so where it's the state, they have resources where they can get them diagnosed at a younger age.
Does he look like he has autism?
No, but he does have some behavioral issues.
But could the behavior issues be from what he's gone through?
Well, what he's gone through, I'm sorry, what he hasn't had anything really happen to him at the point where can you guys be quiet, please? He hasn't really had anything happen to him for him to behave in the manner that he behaves in. And this is why, and they've done autism like charge. They had me fill out the normal pediatrician where they do the screens for it, and they said that he doesn't qualify to be listed as having autism, but because they know that my daughter had used drugs and drank alcohol during her pregnancy, that's why they feel that there's alcohol fetal syndrome, and what, I don't know what that's called when they do the drugs.
So your daughter used drugs throughout the whole pregnancy with him.
I'm guessing so. She wasn't in our life because she was trafficked, and she was missing while she was pregnant with him. And so I don't really know, but I know that the state is saying that she used drugs. And so I don't know how far that goes or what. I don't know the details to that. I'm sorry. But we do know that there was some drug use.
So he's been through a lot since he was born. That's what I meant. What he's going through is from birth, basically.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Was he okay? Was he removed? Was he with foster home before? Did CPS remove this child?
No.
No.
Because when I got him, see, I had the little girl, and I went to court and I fought for the little girl, and they tried to stop me, saying that they were going to put her in custody because where my daughter had her, and my daughter got pregnant while she was being trafficked. And I told the state that I didn't care how she was conceived, that she was my blood, and I was going to take her. And so I fought for her, and I won my case. And
Thank
so
God.
yeah, and so I got her, and then the little boy, we didn't even know about him until he was 5 months old. And
Right.
when I knew about him, because my daughter was on the run from the system because she was trafficked 3 times while in custody. And so the little boy, we didn't know about him till he was like 5 months old. And as soon as I knew about him, I fought for him, and I got him as well.
And how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 21.
And how long was she trafficked?
Well, the first time she was trafficked in state's custody, she was 12 years old. The second time she was 14. The third time she was 15. And this is all in DCF custody. And I don't know if you heard me say, I believe that DCFS told my daughter, and I believe my lawyer now wants to declare my daughter dead.
So your daughter was sex trafficked from CPS?
Yep.
So she
And they
was
wouldn't
sex
see.
trafficked while while she was in their custody, correct?
Correct. I placed my daughter in voluntary custody because my daughter was abused by my grandmother, and she becomes self-destructive. And I did everything that was available to me to help her, but the detriments wasn't helping her. They wanted her to go to therapy like once an hour, once a week, and she needed more intensive services. And it came to a point that I was really scared she was going to kill herself. And so I went to the court and I asked for voluntary custody because they were telling me that I needed to pay $10,000 a month to get the services that I needed to help her, and I didn't have that kind of money. And so I asked the state for help, thinking that they were going to help me, and it's been nothing but a nightmare. She ended up being trafficked 3 times. The first time she was trafficked, they put her in a program in Orem, Utah, and the therapist watched her walk out the door. Another teen girl that set the trafficking thing up, the therapist didn't even call the cops for like 4 hours, and they were gone. And by that time, they had her in a whole nother state.
What county are you in, or state?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. And my judge now won't acknowledge it because I had actually found my daughter one of the times she was on the run, and I was working with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, and I contacted them because I found her at my grandmother's house, and I saw her, the guy that was trafficking her, my aunt and my grandma, and I had called CPS, and CPS refused to open a case. So I got mad and I called the West Valley City Police. I have documents of all of this, but I called I called CPS, and they refused to open a case on my daughter. This is one of the reasons I believe that CPS sold my daughter, because they knew that she was at my grandma's, and they refused to do anything about my grandmother being involved. And I actually had a protective order on my grandmother when this happened, and the guardian ad litem dropped the protective order against my grandma. And right after that, my daughter ended up at her house being trafficked. And then the DA was like, "Oh, we're gonna charge them. They're gonna get like 40 years." And we went to go to trial, and they dropped it just out of the blue. And now my daughter's missing. We have no idea where she is. She's just vanished.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
how old is your daughter?
21.
Mm. No calls, no nothing.
But she was trafficked when she was in their custody, Vincent.
Correct. 3 separate
Right.
times.
She was 13 or 12, 13, and 15.
She was 12, 14, and 15.
Okay, 12, 14, and 15. Now she's 21.
Correct.
So basically, she has a good civil lawsuit.
Right. I want to do a lawsuit, but the problem is, when you're in a situation like this, it's so like, it's frustrating, and they make you feel like you're just nothing. Like, they get things about you, like the things with my grandchildren. I feel like they're trying to set up so they can take my grandkids. So now the guardian ad litem, because I think that they set this up because just everything that happened, and I'd like to talk to you guys more about that at another time. But like every time I go to court, the guardian ad litem sits and talks about how cute my kids are, and I'm going to say something to the judge the next time. And it really makes me angry because it makes me feel like she's doing like a subtle threat. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yes, that's how they do it, though. The subtle threat is when they say, "Oh, your kids are so beautiful. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I will take your child."
That's what they're doing to me right now. And they try
Yeah.
to get the kids from day one, but I put up a fight. This time with the shelter, they didn't have I was able to prove that what was being said was a lie. And now, like the judge, I brought in the police reports and everything to show the judge about my daughter being trafficked, and it says right on the police report that it was observed that this was taking place, and the judge won't even acknowledge it. When I asked her to read to the court what happened in that police report so that they would acknowledge it, she said kidnapping. She said the least thing that happened. She didn't say anything about the forcible rape, anything like that. That it was observed, that they witnessed it. They won't acknowledge it, and I don't know why, unless they're involved in it. Because if they weren't involved, then I would think that they wouldn't have a problem saying that this took place. You know what I'm saying?
Can she still sue the department since her daughter is now 21?
I mean, she can still sue, but to make the case, in my humble opinion, viable, she's got to have her daughter there, and they can't find her.
But in
But
the state of
they lost her. What is
In
the
this-
point of them can't find her if they're the one who lost her?
Did they lose her while she was a minor?
Yes.
No, my daughter, well, she's been missing for 3.5 years. She's been missing.
Okay, but my
And
question is, listen
and
to my
one of the
question. Did CPS lose her when she was a minor? Yes, no, I don't know.
they lost her, but we found her again.
Okay. And then was she an adult when she disappeared?
I don't know, honestly. I know that sounds crazy, but so much has happened, and I try not to look at the times and the ages because I get really upset and I get really depressed, and so much has happened with me fighting them, and so the last time, I'm not sure, she's been missing. My grandson was 5 months old when she went missing. And right after that whole situation happened, and we haven't heard from her since, and it's been 3.5 years.
Okay. Okay. Before we go on, I want to answer this question because this viewer on YouTube, I think, has posted this about 2 or 3 times. Mr. Davis, how long is a removal warrant good for once it's been issued by a judge to remove an infant only to add a sibling group? There's no allegations for my infant, Riverside County. Um, so generally, the warrants I see out in California, they're good for, a certain amount of period. I want to say, like 10 days or 14 days, something like that. But as far as I know, warrants are, um, have a limited life. Warrants do have a limited life. Hey, we're joined by Darren. How are you, Darren? Darren has a bad connection there. Hey, Ms. Yates,
Yes.
did you have any questions that you wanted to ask me?
No, I just wanted to support your show and explain that things are happening. And sometimes I feel like people are targeted, and I feel like I was targeted, and I feel that like they're targeting other people. So like when you're a single mom and you go to a program such as a shelter, they target you. And I just think that there's a connection with these programs and what happens, and them violating your rights, and like the things that happened, and just it was insane. And
Mhm.
I think that more attention needs to be put on this, because they're getting bad about violating people's rights and just separating families. And the caseworkers, while you're going through it, they'll sit and tell you, oh well, we're overbooked, we have too many cases, this and that. But they're the ones who's doing most of it. You know what
Hey,
I mean?
hey, Ms. Yates, I'm going to post my email address. Okay. I
Okay.
want you to email me if you're interested in being a state or county captain in Utah for CPS reform. Okay.
Absolutely. That's
And
not even
anybody
a question.
and anybody watching, email me, and in the subject matter, put state captain or county captain in the subject line, and I'll get back to you. We're looking for at least one state captain and one county captain per county in each state. Um, Miss G and I have been talking about doing something, and to stop talking and implement. So let's start our group. Hey, Miss Yates,
Okay.
I want to thank you for being on the show this evening and
Thank you.
sharing your story and giving us an update. And we hope to, if anything else happens, you know, hopefully you'll find your daughter. If anything
Yeah.
happens, give us a call back and come back on the show. Okay.
Okay. Can you have your lady email me your address? Because I just got my apartment and I don't have internet, so I had to go to a business, and so I'm out, so I can't write it down. So can you please have her email me so I can email you?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
That will be my producer, Grace.
Okay.
Grace, um, hopefully you can hear me and you will email her my email address. Okay. Thank you, Miss Yates.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Well, Miss G, we had a brief appearance by Mr. Darren Guai, but he seemed like he was in his car and he had bad internet reception.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So he's out running the streets tonight? Was that what he's doing?
He said, okay, sir. Um,
It's like 10:30 at night back in Maine, right?
yeah, he was helping his older daughter study for something for college.
Oh,
She's
very
trying
good.
to be a web designer,
Oh, very good.
and her dad knows a lot about that. So he was helping her last time I heard. Maybe he took her to, um, he said he's going to be home in 3 minutes.
Okay. By the way, you said she's a web designer?
Her major is going to be a web designer.
Oh, okay. Does she design websites now?
Darren does.
Does he really?
Darren is very talented. He's actually um, filmographer.
Really?
Hmm. Darren, before the damage happened to him, he was very, he's a college graduate. He's very, very well rounded, very smart guy. I told you I've known him before they removed Nina from him.
Wow.
So he was my friend before this shit happened to him and his wife.
Is she involved at all in the Fight CPS movement?
Who, his wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to separate both of them for something they didn't do. CPS destroyed them, basically.
Are they still together or?
Yeah, they're still together. They're so much in love. They're in love. And the story was somebody owed them money and they went to collect the money. The lady told them to meet her at her hotel or something. When they went to collect the money, because they're that kind of people, they help people in need at the time. And she started screaming and pretending like they're hurting her. They were not. Then when the police got involved, they removed Nina from them.
Hmm.
And right before they removed Nina, she was in the backyard playing with her dad, and he was sending me pictures of her and videos. And then I get a call, and I did tell them they're going to take the child, but they thought because they're good parents, it's not going to happen. And they didn't follow through with it, and then it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And then he told me, I wish I hired you guys. At the time, he was able to hire us.
Did he tell me before that his rights have been terminated?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. But see, that's the thing too. They told his wife Mary that she has to leave him, but Mary's like, why? And then all of a sudden, they said they received anonymous calls, like that he's abusing her. Never. They've never abused each other. They love each other very much, and he's a God-fearing man. He's a good man, and he'll do anything for his wife, and she'll do anything for him. That's why it's tragic what went on, but that's why he's fighting. He was fighting really hard, and so see what CPS does is they destroy people's lives, and they're focused on the kids who are not being abused, and all they need is just any allegation, whether it's false or actually only false allegation they go by. Because all the kids who are being abused, how come they're not being acknowledged? How come they're not being removed? Why are we hearing all of a sudden CPS was called 28 times and it's unfounded, but then they go to a good parent's house and all of a sudden it's founded? It
All
doesn't make
right.
any damn sense. Hi, babe. I was just talking about you to
Hey, all
Vincent.
right.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
man, the myth,
well,
the myth, the legend.
no, you're the legend, though.
Aaron
You're the
Guy.
legend, Mr. D. You are the legend.
Who was that in the plaid shirt there?
Oh, that's my wife. That's
Oh,
Mary. That's the Mary. That's the legend that you always hear about. I just came flying into the studio. I just got out of the car and got in here, and she had everything ready for me to rock and roll. So that's good.
Oh, wow. Now
Yeah.
tell me something about your studio. I see the colored lights in the back. I really like that. What's
Yeah.
that?
So this is this here. There's computers you can't see. You come up here. These computers there. There's computers everywhere, and they all have certain purposes. I have a recording studio right over here. You can see that. But yeah, like it's. Then there's a couple office chairs, that sit back there. So if people are, they're watching, or I'm doing voiceovers or whatever, so people can relax and read scripts and all that good stuff.
Do you have a vlog that you do or a blog?
Well, I do on that new site that I have, the Abolish CPS one. I just started that, so but I haven't before. I went to college for this stuff. well, geez, I don't now I'll age myself, but I went to college for this stuff I graduated from college in 98. And I went for film school at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. I got a degree in film production, and then I went into being a biorecovery technician after. So, however that worked out, that's how it did. And finally, because of this, everything happens for a reason, I guess. So, because of this run-in with CPS, I've definitely gotten back into my media stuff, and it's brought me back tenfold. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird story, but it's mine, and I'll stick with it. So.
What is your website's name?
It's abolishcps.com.
Okay. I found it.
Yes. And then there were the links on here for you guys too, but I took them down today to put the new highlights on, and I've yet to put them back. But you'll see where the podcasts are. There's a spot in there for you. Miss G's seen it also, but I'll have it. So in there, you can also click on your show live. You'll click on Miss G's show. My podcast is on there. And anybody else that can get these podcasts to me or whatever that they do, I would like to put them there. So we have a spot for everybody, like a podcast hub, if you will, for anybody that has the CPS stories that they're talking about and all of that. This is pretty much what I want to build here is like yesterday you were talking about the lawyers, like getting the lawyers together as far as like a union or a collection, if you will. I'm doing the same with all of these satellite. I'm trying to do is take all these satellite groups for CPS and everything, and trying to put us into one spot so everybody can see the amount of power that there is really behind the CPS movement. And I think because there are a ton of satellite groups out there, that aren't getting the recognition they need because they don't have a Mr. Davis, like they don't have a big man on their front, but they're just as valuable and just as crucial as the ones that are with you and with not, like every person in this that's had this and been affected by CPS, they hold a ton of power. They hold the heart, man. These people have affected your hearts and your families, so the power that we have that we could really use, it would just be tremendous. But if everybody would just get together, for God's sake, stop trying to go in after things, because I see a lot of these groups trying to go in after their own agendas, like trying to change laws, or this, that, or this. Well, hopefully their first agenda is to try to get their child back. That's really what I think the number one focus should be for any of these groups, because I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people every day. And you know what the one thing that they don't have? They don't have their kids, but yet they're giving advice. They're doing all of these things. So how are you supposed to follow a bunch of people that they didn't get their kids back? Why am I supposed to believe you? Why am I supposed to listen to you? Why have you been doing this for 30 years and you still don't have any legislation on the table? Like, what is wrong? What is wrong with what's going on here? If you are been in this business for so long and been against this for so long, then why has nothing changed yet? We're recycling crews. What are we doing here? Because something isn't working. Because if you tell me that you've been doing this for 20 years and you don't have any results, then you need to change your game up because it's not working. So that only tells me one of two things. It's either one, they're not serious about what they're doing, or they're trying to do this because they're shaving their pockets or filling their pockets in one way or the other by saying that they're some type of, what is the word that they say, that they're not a lawyer, but they're an advocate or something like that. And, like nobody knows the real remedy to win this fight. I mean, you fight it every day, Mr. Davis, and I'm sure if you had to get your kid out of CPS free card, you would use it. And I know you have what do you call it, the 388, right? That's the one that you say is your guarantee. But I see all of these places are trying to do their own thing. Let's get them all together. Let's put it together. Let's brainstorm this thing and let's beat these bastards. I mean, that's just as simple as that. Same as you, like the lawyers. Get the lawyers together. That way everybody knows Judge Joe Blow. Oh, look it up online. Judge Joe Blow, he does this. He does this. He does this. Perfect. That's what I need to look at when I go to court with him. I think that's genius what you were talking about. That networking.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. That was what I saw other groups of attorneys doing, when I first became a lawyer. And I thought, that's really a good idea. Good idea.
So let me ask this question. What is jurisdiction is the word that everybody throws around very, everybody's jurisdiction. What predominantly does that word jurisdiction mean? And what are the jurisdictions in these CPS cases that you would be able to, remedy, I guess, if you were going to court and someone said, Mr. Davis, what about jurisdiction? In your head, what would that be to you? Like, what would you challenge, or how would you go about it? And I guess so on and so forth.
Well, jurisdiction in the law means two different things. There's one called personal jurisdiction and one called subject matter jurisdiction. Now, I'll tell you personal jurisdiction first because it's kind of important and sometimes overlooked. Let's say that the state of Florida files a case against Georgette regarding her children. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The state of Florida probably doesn't have jurisdiction over Georgette. She's never been there. So first, a court has to establish personal jurisdiction. Now, here's the thing. If Georgette doesn't bring it up at the very beginning of the case, she will probably waive jurisdiction.
Okay.
In other words, she'll have to come there, go to Florida, and fight. In California, well, personal jurisdiction is kind of a constitutional thing, constitutional argument. And there are a few famous cases regarding personal jurisdiction. There's an old case called Pennoyer versus Neff. And if you go to law school, or when you go to law school, Miss G, you're going to learn about Pennoyer versus Neff. And it talks about, a state just can't have jurisdiction over you, especially if you've never been there or done any business there. The constitutional test is minimum contacts. So there's a lot of arguments that can be made and sometimes should be made about whether a court has jurisdiction. You see it more in the terms of inside the state. So let me give you an example. There was a woman who had a case in Ventura County, and she left Ventura County and was living in, I think, Orange County, and she had another baby. Well, Ventura County thought that since she once lived in Ventura and she had a new baby born in Orange County, that they could take jurisdiction over that kid inside the Ventura courts or in the Ventura County court system. Now, remember, there's money involved. So if you add another child to the whole system, that means more money from the federal government. And so there was a big fight about whether the court had personal jurisdiction over that child. Unfortunately, the mother lost the personal jurisdiction because it had been proven that she had had minimum contacts with Ventura County. However, let's say another county like Shasta County up north tried to get involved. They may not have personal jurisdiction over the mom. Now, personal jurisdiction is, you wouldn't believe the theoretical arguments that people bring up. Sometimes it's case dispositive, meaning it will control the case. The second type of jurisdiction is something called subject matter jurisdiction. And that's what most people talk about jurisdiction in CPS cases, is subject matter jurisdiction. And that's, are the allegations enough to be inside the juvenile dependency court? And believe it or not, over the last 30 some years, I've seen a number of cases where the CPS social worker has alleged something that really wasn't, child abuse, that really, wasn't within the jurisdiction of the juvenile court. For whatever reason, CPS thinks they have jurisdiction over everything, and they almost do. But there are arguments that can be made with respect to subject matter jurisdiction. And in fact, in California, the second hearing to establish whether the court is going to continue with the case is called the jurisdictional hearing. And I believe it's called the jurisdictional hearing because the court determines whether the allegations against the parent are true, number one, and number two, whether they fall into the category of child abuse that's covered by Welfare and Institutions Code section 300 here in California. So, that's the whole jurisdictional argument in a nutshell. It becomes very important sometimes on kind of on a theoretical basis. You don't hear a lot of attorneys making arguments regarding personal jurisdiction because sometimes it's just not an issue. And it's not an issue in every case. Jurisdictional is an issue in every case, and that's why they call it, I think, the jurisdictional hearing, the subject matter jurisdictional hearing. I hope that clears it up for you and makes some sense.
Yeah, that's. I think you just got in on the head there. I got to take a second here because I know my daughter's watching. That's her, Bree Guay, right there. That's my daughter. I love her too. I just left her house. We were out there helping her with some homework. So love you too, kid. Learn from Mr. Davis and Georgette, Miss G. You know who she is. So pay attention. That's the one kid that CPS didn't get. So I did a fine job. We did a fine job raising her. So that's why it's, that's where it's the double-edged sword is that her sister was taken. Like it's crazy that happens.
Did the social worker ever offer to place the child with this adult child?
So here's the thing is we offered up many remedies other than what they had chose. Bree actually had come and so when they took her, she had gone to Mary's mom's originally. And then my daughter came down to stay with her because they tried to make accusations that my mother-in-law was not well enough to handle a baby all the time. So then we compounded that. Bree moved out of her house and came in and moved with my mother-in-law. Bree was there for 8 or 9 days. No, it wasn't even that. I'm sorry. It was 3 or 4 days. It was a long weekend. So, of course, imminent danger didn't come through the long weekend, It was, 8 or 9 days before that ever happened. And Bree had called up that Tuesday morning and said, hey, is everything okay now that I moved in and everything? They said everything's great. And an hour later, there they were to get our daughter. And they never gave her a chance. She tried to get Nina to be able to come live with her and everything. And the caseworker they would not have it. They just would have nothing to do with it. That was the way it was with all of our cases. They didn't interview anybody from our families unless we forced it on them. We tried. I gave them the list, like I had watched you. I've known you for a long time, but we gave them the list and, they would either never accept anybody or they would never, no one was good enough or, even that was the visitation, the same thing. They kept us going to the overseen visits at the mini mall that they had it at, so there were a lot of weird things, but no, and then they even made it so Bree couldn't even see her sister.
Well, let me ask you this, because, the strategies that I lay out, a lot of people get part of the strategies exactly right, but they don't understand the second part or the third part of the strategy. Let me ask you something. Did Bree, as an adult, ever file anything with the court and demand a hearing with the judge to get that child?
So get this, Bree wrote her a letter
yeah.
requesting a motion, like she wrote her this letter, so on and so forth. A year prior, she wrote this letter. After they TPR'd us, she got a copy of that letter back returned saying that it was, what's that word for it? It was mute. It was no good. It was a moot point.
It was no good. Yeah, it was
right.
after the fact.
So,
right.
But they never acknowledged that she had submitted that letter to the court.
A year before.
Yeah, a year. It was about a year before. Yeah, she's writing right here. I asked ICC and they said you need to go through her manager first. Yeah, so they made it very difficult, if not impossible, for Bree to have access to her sister is pretty much the bottom line here.
One of the things that you have to do is Bree and or her attorney have to get together, file and serve the appropriate motion in front of the judge so that you get on calendar, that you get a hearing date. Now, I was involved in a case, it's been some time ago.
The child has been adopted, Vincent.
I know.
No, she's not yet. She's not yet.
When is she going to be adopted?
As we're still in the appeal process.
Okay.
So they can't do anything. And then this is why I was kind of asking you about the jurisdiction too. I was wondering, because I know that can be challenged at any time. And I also know that there's the Rule 60 where evidence, precluding the outcome of the trial that was not able to go into the case. I don't know what they call it there, the Rule 60 up here in Maine, but it's if there's something comes out where for instance, for my conviction were, the crimes that they had said that I committed, they were all dismissed, but that didn't come out at the TPR hearing. They actually tried me pretty much at that hearing for that. That was what my whole questioning was 162 questions about the alleged criminal incident that I had, none of which were involving Nina whatsoever. And then afterwards, of course, the case was dismissed, all charges dismissed. So I was thinking maybe that would be Rule 60. See, my attorneys wouldn't have anything to do with listening to me or whatever. Of course, they're the attorneys too, but they have already proved, because they were from the state. I started figuring this game out, once, I was along with this trip, like how they definitely, looking back, hindsight's 2020. They definitely, all they did was hold our hands to walk down the aisle to TPR, make sure that the appeals were difficult for them. I mean, for us to prove, not for them, like they wanted. Then it was just, I mean, I can go on and on. I know I don't want to bore anybody with my story, but I think these are similarities that people have in all these cases. Like my visitations were stopped. Isn't that the rule, that the judges are supposed to be the only ones that can stop a visitation? Isn't that the, like your supervised visits? So they stopped mine after the podcast came out, and then I would tell my attorney, can we fight for this? Can we fight for this? And he would say, oh, it's going to take too long. We'll wait to the judicial review. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do it. So he never did it. So I went all these months without being able to see my daughter again. And it was always another excuse, like, wait a minute. So then, of course, when we get to the TPR, what do they say? I've abandoned her.
Yeah, you have no relationship. You have no relationship with her.
Yeah. Right, because so I'm going to go out here on a big one and say this. My attorney called me, our original TPR case, our TPR trial was supposed to be in May, only 5 months after Nina had been taken from the house. So that comes about. And then my attorney calls me one day and he says, listen, I'm going to ask for a continuance because I feel like I'm not ready yet for this. My wife has been very sick and I don't think that I've been able to fulfill, the obligation to you. So I think this is nice. By the time I hung up with him, there's an email already that tells me that the motion had been granted, that the continuance has been granted and all of this. I said, well, that's strange. How come you can get a continuance this fast, but you couldn't go in front of a judge to get me my visitation back, but you can get a continuance this fast? Well, when we did the math, 6 months to the day from the time of the continuance was the 6 months that they needed to say that I had abandoned officially my daughter because they had kept me from speaking to her that long. And then I did my own research, come to find out there was, well, I'll just keep that to whatever, because I'm not going to say anything for sure, but let's just say that the doctor's visit seemed a little bit hoaxy, if you will, with his wife. So anyway, but my point is these are the games that these guys will play. And you know this, they must play timetables with you all the time. Like if you're not paying attention to them trying to, for say, get your kid abandoned, like the 6 months that the state needs to say, and one of their reasonings for your TPR is you've abandoned your child. Mm-hmm. Well, if you haven't spoken to your child in 6 months, and if CPS is saying that you haven't done anything or you haven't tried to or whatever, well, there's just that strike against you for them to find you guilty.
But how can you, but you tried, Darren. I'm a witness to that. You tried. Right. And they would not let him speak to his daughter. And mm-hmm. in fact, I mean, it was so sad. I was telling Davis that I've known you before they removed Nina. Mm-hmm. And the last video I had of her was when she was playing with you in the backyard. Yeah, that was right before they came and took her. Mm-hmm. When we were building the fence, and that fence still is not done. And she was Daddy's little girl, like literally, like Daddy's little shadow. Yeah, she had her little work belt on, and we were out there building the fence. And that fence is still as it was the day that she left, because I promised her that I wouldn't finish it until she came home. So, and you know what's so sad? That they turned his family against him. Yeah. His brother's a doctor. Turned his brother against him. Yeah, my brothers. Turned everybody against him. Pretty much the whole family. And when I tell people they attack your family first, believe it. Even though they raised you, they should know you. They loved you. You spent holidays with them. You had Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. Believe me, they will turn your family against you. Yeah, they were also mad because I was, I had spoken out against this because I was being wronged. It wasn't that I was speaking out because I'm mad that CPS came. Of course, I'm mad that they came, but they were wrong in every aspect of what they had done to us. And then the family starts going, well, if you would have just listened to what CPS said, if you would have just done what CPS said to do, if you would have just not had a podcast, if you would have not done this, wait a minute, what are you talking? You all have been sitting right here this entire time. You saw all the malarkey that they had put up and put the front on. And then come to find out the caseworker is out spilling lies about you to the foster family where she is now. So my cousins were my only family that we had. And that's where Nina has ultimately,
gone to, and we were best friends. And then once Nina went there, and the caseworker got involved, and the
Mhm.
senator got involved, and all of these things got involved, all of a sudden there's no more communication. We're the worst people on earth. So what was being my mother, her sister-in-law, they've been together in the family for 50 years, and she does not talk to my mother anymore, and no one knows why. Obviously we don't know why, which is my aunt is where Nina's foster family is now, with her daughter. So but that's sickening. That's my mom's husband's died. My mom's husband of 30 years has died while Nina's been gone. Her grandfather, that's the only grandfather she loves so much, has died since all this has happened. These things are not replaceable. When she comes home, she's going to say, I want Bob. I want Bob.
Mhm.
What are you going to tell these kids? People don't forget. This is the other part that drives me insane. Okay, your kids come home. I bet CPS is right out the door. Where's the counseling? Where's all this stuff that your kids are going to need to get their security back about their parents? Because you figure these kids are scarred now. Their big tough mom and dad that are supposed to protect them from anything, in their minds, have given them up, especially if CPS has told this to them. Because we all know that they tell them all kinds of stories that we're this, your parents didn't want you. I mean, people can say whatever they want, but the facts are the facts and the truth's the truth. There can't be this many stories that are saying the same thing and there's no truth to them. I mean, that's why Mr. Davis says that you talk about the affidavit of truth, make sure you write this stuff down and get it into your court records, right? That's another important part, because that at least helps you, does it not, Mr. Davis? If they're saying that you did this and then you have something to contest in your records already, because they're going to take whatever you say and, they're going to make you a liar out of their own narratives.
Yes, most definitely.
So these are the things that I wish I would have known then, because these are all full of it. It's just the whole thing of how it just swoops you in, picks you up, slams you down, and leaves you shaking your head afterwards going, what the hell just happened? How, when this whole first began, you almost crack up and think about, this is almost like a joke. Are you kidding me? We have 2 beautiful houses, white picket fence, a dog, taking care of our mothers, doing everything that you can do. Great jobs, plenty of money, all this stuff. And a whirlwind. It's just
If Davis would see your house, I saw the house. And he has an amazing, I don't know, little mansion, I guess you can call it.
right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's none of the narratives say anything that the child was short of food, clothing, any of this
Nothing.
stuff. None of it. The
She lacked
reunification to the day that we went to the TPR hearing, the judge still said reunification is the goal of this family. And I'm sitting there and I speak up a little bit, and I shouldn't have. And I'm like, how can you even say this? How can you sit here while we're in this courtroom and say that reunification is still the goal of this, and you guys are terminating our rights?
Mm-hmm.
That's
They just want something in writing, Darren. We talked about this. They just want to look good on paper, but their action speaks louder than their fucking words. That's the problem.
But I mean, this is what everybody is going through. I'm not the only one, and as much as
But you thought what before, Darren? What did you tell me before? People that have their kids removed must be bad parents.
Yeah, they were bad. That's why I always say the stigma is the number one thing that needs to be transferred here, because they're not. And I feel ashamed forever questioning or even turning my back on people that told me that CPS had been in their lives, because I thought they must be the most terrible people on earth. I don't even have the time of day to waste with these people. And it's not. I mean, when you look at the stats, 87% of them, their cases are wrong. So if I met 10 people, that means 9 of those people that I turned away were really good people, and they had no reason for this to happen to them. And that's so sad that families are just being ripped apart like this. And the stain that it leaves on your family is, they're just finding out how long, the effects of these foster families are on children, these new wave of children that are coming to be 18 and 19. They're just seeing if the effects are of this. And they're not good. If they were waiting for the test phase to end and it's ended, it's not good, because these kids are becoming alcoholics. They're becoming prostitutes. They're becoming drug addicts. They're becoming everything that CPS is out to take the children away from. And they've created these things. They've created these monsters, and that's really what they've done. And that's going to be okay. Where is the people of the United States standing up and saying, okay, these are our kids. This is in our soil. We have a war going on in our soil every day, every minute. A child a minute is taken into this system. Do the math. 60 kids by the time of this show's over with have been brought into CPS custody. 60 of them. You know, by the time this show's on tomorrow, what is that? 1,500 kids? Or is it 15,000? I'm not even sure what the math is. But by the time we see each other again tomorrow, pending that I'm on time, you know, how many kids are going to be taken? You know, like that number is astronomical, and it doesn't stop. It never, and people, all you're seeing if you look at these records is the number of kids are increasing, or the numbers of adoptions aren't increasing, but the numbers of kids still are. They add more caseworkers. Well, that should lessen the load, right? Because they're supposed to be paying attention. No, all it's doing is grabbing more kids. That's all these people are doing. And I hate the fact that they sit there and they say these caseworkers are overworked, they're tired. That, you know what, if that's the case, get them the hell out of there, because they're playing God with our kids. They're playing God with our families. You know, and thank God, Mr. Davis, there's people like you that are out there and you fighting your ass off, but you're only one man. You can only do so much, you know, and you need to eat too. So, you know, unfortunately, the people that are involved in this stuff, you know, listen, where there's a will, there's a way. You need to find what you need to find for your kids. And I'm not saying you be lazy and don't try and everything else. But, you know, like Mr. Davis costs money. But you know why he costs money? Because it's results. He gets the results. He doesn't lose. You know, and that doesn't come, like we talked about in your show. What did we say? You said to me yesterday, 700 on a normal, like a straight up case, would you 750 hours or something like that? Or 75 to 100? I don't even remember what. It was just an astronomical number of time that you spend on each case. You know, and you can't expect to do this for pennies. And then you need to have Miss G, and you need to have people answering the phones. You know, so for that service, it's not free. But you know what? Your kids are worth it. You know, sell everything you have to, whatever you got to do, you know, because Mr. Davis will be there in the back end too, saying, all right, now let's do these guys. So all that money you spent, we'll get it back. You know, it's almost like investing in a guaranteed, you know, outcome. I mean, I hate to put that much confidence onto you, Mr. Davis, but I mean, from what I've seen, read, and listened, I mean, you're pretty much the best of the best that there is, man.
Oh, you're so kind. There's many very well qualified lawyers out there. You just have to dig and you have to find them. You know,
But you don't have to dig for you. You're right there in the forefront.
I
Really, you are.
appreciate that.
YouTube, everything. You're doing these little 10-minute skits to educate people and try to teach them at least something. Because if they can't afford you, at least it's not like you're like, pay for my service so you can watch my videos. Nope, they're all out there. They're all out there for free. I mean, that's pretty freaking huge, because you don't get people like that anymore. You do not. And that just shows your heart for all of this, you know? It's absolutely amazing. And people need to realize, and, you know, they should be, I don't know. I don't even know where to go with that one, but people need to understand that what you do is pretty freaking awesome. And there needs to be more of you out there.
Man, last time I said all this good, Darren. Last time I said all these good things about him, he interrupted me and said, "We're past due. What?
Show's almost over.
And that was that. I'm like, damn. Okay, thanks, appreciate it. And then I was like, fuck, I take it back. I can take it back.
Hey, Darren,
yes,
not a
Next
true
week, I'm gonna grow a beard and a mustache, Darren, and I'll
so
dye my hair black.
it's going to be part of Mr. D and the
shave it
boys.
off, wear a
Hey,
hat and an American T-shirt and put tattoos on.
Darren, she's not a true believer.
Oh,
True believer of what?
she's a believer in,
believer of what?
hey, Georgette, we need to get it in Davis. There's my next T-shirt. In Davis we trust.
Oh,
Georgette for
hell no.
2024.
I
In
I will
Davis
burn
we
that
trust.
shirt. I will.
Yep.
Oh no. You know what? I
Mr. Davis, I
swear
have your
I will
personal
divorce
email. I'll make sure I
your
send it to you after the
ass.
show.
You know what, Darren? She'll have to wear that on every show.
Yes.
You know, I've noticed that tonight she's like all dressed up and everything. You look very nice, Miss G.
She does look very
dressing
nice.
dressing up for the show. I'm kind of impressed.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
I have
Yep.
dinner after the show.
Oh. Now we know.
Wait a
Now we
minute.
know.
What's going on? You're going to dinner, huh? You didn't tell
I'm
me
just
that.
going to dinner. It's not like I'm gonna go get married.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Have you
am I
talked to her
supposed to
about
have
this, Mr.
dinner?
Davis?
Huh?
Have you spoken to her about this?
About dinner?
No, not
Yeah, what
at
time
all.
is she supposed to be in tonight?
I don't know. Who said she was coming home?
You're right. It's a scary world out there.
Damn, that's comforting.
Well, I'm going to make sure that I call you every 20 minutes.
That's okay, Darren.
And if you don't answer, I'm going to call Mr. Davis. Because
What
I have
is
the
he going to
number.
do about it?
I have the number to the king.
He
I've got
doesn't
the
care.
number.
Mr.
You
It says
Davis will
Yeah.
king
be
right in my
asleep.
phone.
Mr. Davis will be asleep.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. Davis will be. He doesn't
Oh,
care
man.
whether I show up or not.
I'll check on her at 9 a.m. tomorrow when she's supposed to start
Right?
working.
Yeah. If you don't hear from her, I'll take the late night shift, Mr. Davis. All right. So I'll make it so she can get there for 9.
All right. Hey, but seriously, we have run out of time. I want to thank you, Miss G, for being a co-host. Thank you, Darren, for coming on. And
Yes,
I want to
sir.
invite both of you guys back tomorrow at 7 p.m. And we'll do
7
this
p.m.
once again with a new, another guest and maybe some more topics, and we'll have some fun.
All right.
Maybe we'll ask Miss G about her
Yeah, we
dinner.
can ask her about dinner.
Darren,
Bring your
Darren.
Bible with you. Remember, you're a Christian
I-
woman. Don't you forget that.
Darren,
Just saying.
I love you.
Bye, Miss G. It's time for the show to be over. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night,
Have a good
everyone.
night, Mr. Davis.
I love
Bye-bye.
you, Darren. Bye.
Bye.